Welcome to Bible Horizons, where we uncover the timeless stories and profound lessons of the Bible. Today, we journey into the life of one of the most extraordinary women in Scripture, Ruth. Though her story spans only 4 short chapters in the book of Ruth, its impact ripples across biblical history and theology. Imagine a woman who begins her journey as a grieving widow in a foreign land, yet ends up as a key figure in the lineage of King David and Jesus Christ. Ruth's story is one of loyalty, faith, and divine providence, a tale that resonates with anyone who has ever faced uncertainty or hardship. Through Ruth's life, we see how God works behind the scenes, weaving individual stories into his greater plan of redemption. Her unwavering commitment to her mother-in-law, Naomi, and her courage to embrace a new faith and people make her an enduring example of devotion and trust. Stay with us as we explore how Ruth's journey from Moab to Bethlehem unfolds, how her faithfulness opens doors to unexpected blessings, and how her legacy points to the ultimate Redeemer, Jesus Christ. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Bible Horizons for more inspiring biblical stories and insights. Tragedy and loyalty. The story of Ruth begins in the small town of Bethlehem, a place later renowned as the birthplace of kings, but at this time overshadowed by suffering. A severe famine has swept through the land, leaving families struggling to survive. Among those affected is Elimelech, a man of stature in Bethlehem, who, along with his wife Naomi and their 2 sons, decides to leave their homeland. Their destination is Moab, a foreign land, often viewed with suspicion by Israelites, yet offering the promise of sustenance and hope. Initially, their move seems like a practical decision, but their new life in Moab is soon marred by tragedy. Elimelech, the family patriarch, passes away, leaving Naomi a widow in an unfamiliar and often hostile land. Despite their grief, Naomi's 2 sons find love and companionship, marrying Moabite women named Orpah and Ruth. For a fleeting moment, it seems as though hope might blossom again. However, the sorrow deepens. Within a decade, both sons also die, leaving Naomi, Orpah, and Ruth bereft. Naomi, having lost her husband and both her children, is crushed under the weight of despair. For a woman in the ancient world, particularly one without male relatives, this is not just an emotional loss, but also a loss of security, status, and livelihood. Naomi finds herself an outsider in a foreign land with no clear path forward. Hearing that the famine in Bethlehem has ended, Naomi resolves to return to her homeland, hoping at least to find solace among her people. She encourages her daughters-in-law to stay in Moab, reasoning that they are young and could remarry, rebuild their lives, and find happiness once again. Her pleas are filled with a heartbreaking mixture of love and resignation, as she believes she has nothing left to offer them. Orpah, after much tearful deliberation, accepts Naomi's counsel. She bids her mother-in-law an emotional farewell and turns back toward her family and familiar life in Moab. Ruth, however, refuses to leave Naomi. Her loyalty and devotion shine through in a declaration that has resonated across centuries. "Do not urge me to leave you or to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and me." This extraordinary commitment is far more than an act of kindness. It is a radical choice. Ruth is willing to leave behind her homeland, her culture, and even the gods she grew up worshiping, to adopt Naomi's people and the God of Israel. She pledges to share Naomi's fate, whether it brings hardship or hope. Together, the 2 widows embark on the long journey back to Bethlehem. Naomi, whose heart is weighed down by bitterness and grief, renames herself Mara, meaning bitter, believing that the Lord's hand has turned against her. Ruth, on the other hand, remains steadfast, embodying resilience and quiet hope. As they walk the dusty roads to Bethlehem, the contrast between these two women becomes evident. Naomi is wrapped in sorrow, consumed by the loss of her past life. Ruth, however, represents the possibility of renewal, her unwavering loyalty pointing toward an unspoken hope for redemption. Their arrival in Bethlehem is met with whispers and curious stares. The townspeople hardly recognize Naomi, so transformed is she by her grief. Yet their return marks the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with unforeseen blessings, divine providence, and a legacy that will ripple through generations. At this moment, they cannot yet see the hand of God at work, but as the story unfolds, it will become clear that even in their darkest hours, He has been guiding their path. Provision and providence. Ruth and Naomi's return to Bethlehem marks a pivotal moment in their story. For Naomi, it is a bittersweet homecoming, as she bears the weight of loss and bitterness. She has returned empty-handed to a place filled with memories of her past happiness. Ruth, however, steps into a foreign land as an outsider, a Moabite widow with no wealth, no status, and no connections. Yet, despite these challenges, Ruth's unwavering loyalty and determination soon set the stage for a remarkable turn of events. The barley harvest has just begun in Bethlehem, a season filled with hope and renewal. Ruth wastes no time in seeking a way to provide for herself and Naomi. She asks for permission to go into the fields and glean leftover grain behind the harvesters, a practice allowed under Israelite law to care for the poor and vulnerable. It is a humble and laborious task, but Ruth's courage and humility shine through her actions. Providence leads Ruth to the fields of Boaz, a wealthy and respected man in Bethlehem who happens to be a relative of Elimelech, Naomi's late husband. Boaz is immediately struck by Ruth's diligence, as she works tirelessly in the heat of the day. When he learns of her selfless devotion to Naomi, he is moved by her character. Boaz approaches Ruth with kindness, offering her protection and favor. He instructs his workers to leave extra grain for her to gather, and ensures she is treated with respect. This gesture goes beyond mere generosity. It is an acknowledgement of Ruth's remarkable qualities, and a reflection of Boaz's own righteousness. In a touching scene, Ruth expresses her gratitude to Boaz, humbling herself and marveling at his kindness toward a foreigner. Boaz, in turn, blesses her, saying, "May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Ruth returns to Naomi that evening with an abundant harvest, far more than they could have hoped for. When Naomi hears of Boaz's kindness, her heart begins to stir with a flicker of hope. She realizes that Boaz is not only a kind benefactor, but also a kinsman redeemer, a relative who, under Israelite custom, has the right to help their family by redeeming their land or marrying a widow to continue the family line. This revelation ignites a new plan in Naomi's heart. The woman who had once renamed herself Mara, or bitter, begins to see the faint outlines of God's providence in their story. Naomi encourages Ruth to continue gleaning in Boaz's fields, not only for the grain they desperately need, but also to build a connection with the man who could change their future. Ruth's diligence and Boaz's generosity serve as powerful reminders of God's provision. Though the path they walk is still uncertain, every step they take is guided by a divine hand. What began as a simple act of gleaning has blossomed into a relationship of kindness, protection, and possibility. This chapter of their journey showcases a profound truth. God often works through ordinary acts of faithfulness, and unexpected encounters to accomplish extraordinary purposes. Ruth's choice to glean in the fields and Boaz's decision to show compassion are woven together into a story that speaks of God's care for His people, even in their darkest times. Unbeknownst to them, their actions are laying the foundation for something far greater, a legacy that will ripple through generations and culminate in the arrival of the Messiah. But for now, Ruth and Naomi take their first steps out of despair, trusting that the God of Israel is at work in their lives. Redeemed by love. As the barley harvest draws to a close, Naomi sees a chance for Ruth to secure a stable future and preserve their family's legacy. Inspired by her knowledge of Israelite customs and a spark of hope, Naomi devises a bold plan. She instructs Ruth to approach Boaz during the night, not in secrecy born of shame, but with a gesture that would signal her willingness to enter into a covenant of marriage under the tradition of the kinsman redeemer. Ruth follows Naomi's advice with courage and humility. She prepares herself, putting on her best attire, and goes to the threshing floor where Boaz is resting after a long day of work. Quietly, she uncovers his feet and lies down, a symbolic act of submission and trust. When Boaz awakens and finds Ruth at his feet, he is startled, but Ruth speaks boldly. "Spread the corner of your garment over me, for you are a kinsman redeemer." This phrase carries profound meaning. Ruth is not merely asking for protection. She is inviting Boaz to fulfill his role as a redeemer by marrying her and restoring Naomi's family line. Her request is both an act of faith and a declaration of trust in Boaz's integrity and character. Boaz is deeply moved by Ruth's proposal. He praises her for her kindness, noting that she has not pursued younger men, whether rich or poor. Boaz sees in Ruth a woman of exceptional virtue and faith, and he responds with honor, "I will do for you all you ask. Everyone in town knows that you are a woman of noble character." However, Boaz reveals that there is another man who is a closer relative and has the first right to act as kinsman redeemer. Boaz, being a man of integrity, resolves to settle the matter immediately. He assures Ruth that regardless of the outcome, her and Naomi's future will be secure. The next morning, Boaz approaches the town gate, the place where legal matters are resolved, and calls together the elders as witnesses. He confronts the other kinsman redeemer and explains the situation, offering him the opportunity to redeem Naomi's land and marry Ruth. Initially, the man agrees to redeem the land, but upon learning that it includes marrying Ruth, he declines, fearing it might endanger his own inheritance. Seizing the opportunity, Boaz declares his intention to redeem both the land and Ruth. Before the elders and witnesses, he publicly takes Ruth as his wife, fulfilling his role as kinsman redeemer and ensuring that Naomi's family line will continue. The people bless their union, praying that Ruth will be like Rachel and Leah, the matriarchs who built the house of Israel. This moment is a triumph of love, faithfulness, and divine orchestration. Through Boaz's selflessness and Ruth's courage, the story moves from sorrow to joy, from loss to restoration. What began as a tale of despair now blossoms into a story of redemption that points to the ultimate Redeemer. Boaz's actions echo the heart of God's love, redeeming the lost, restoring the broken, and bringing hope to the hopeless. Ruth's story foreshadows Christ's redemptive work, as he willingly stepped into humanity's brokenness, not out of obligation, but out of love. Together, Ruth and Boaz demonstrate that God's purposes are not thwarted by human weakness or adversity. Instead, he weaves together the lives of ordinary people to create something extraordinary, a legacy that reaches far beyond their time. A legacy of redemption. With Ruth and Boaz now united in marriage, their story takes a transformative turn that goes beyond personal joy. It becomes a chapter in God's unfolding plan of redemption. Shortly after their union, Ruth gives birth to a son, Obed. This child is not only a blessing to Ruth and Boaz, but also a symbol of hope and restoration for Naomi. Naomi, who once lamented that she returned to Bethlehem empty, now cradles her grandson, her arms full of life and promise. The women of Bethlehem, who had witnessed Naomi's bitterness, now rejoice with her, declaring, "Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel." Naomi's joy overflows as she nurtures Obed, a child whose life represents the continuation of her family line and the faithfulness of God. What began as tragedy now radiates with a divine blessing, demonstrating how God can transform despair into hope through his providential care. Obed grows to become the father of Jesse, who becomes the father of David, the greatest king of Israel. Ruth, the Moabite widow who entered Bethlehem as an outsider, is now woven into the lineage of Israel's royal family. More significantly, this lineage leads directly to Jesus Christ, the ultimate Redeemer. The story of Ruth and Boaz does more than highlight their faith and love. It underscores God's sovereignty in orchestrating his purposes across generations. Through their union, God lays the groundwork for the fulfillment of his covenant promise to Abraham, a promise that finds its ultimate expression in Jesus. In Ruth's humble life, we see how God often works through unexpected people and circumstances. A Moabite widow becomes a central figure in the story of salvation, reminding us that no one is beyond the reach of God's grace. Her inclusion in the genealogy of Christ, recorded in the Gospel of Matthew, is a powerful testament to the boundless nature of God's redemptive love. This legacy of redemption calls us to reflect on our own place in God's story. Just as Ruth and Boaz played their part in fulfilling his purposes, we too are invited to trust him with our lives, knowing that he can use even the smallest acts of faithfulness to accomplish something far greater than we can imagine. Ruth's story resonates through the ages, a testament to the fact that God's plans are never thwarted by human limitations. From the fields of Moab to the throne of David, and ultimately to the cross of Christ, her life points to the ultimate Redeemer who restores all things. As we reflect on Ruth's legacy, may we find inspiration to live with unwavering faith and to trust that God is weaving our stories into his grand design. Her life is not just a tale of redemption, but a beacon of hope for all who place their trust in God. Ruth's timeless impact. The story of Ruth concludes with a profound reminder of God's faithfulness and redemptive power. Ruth, a Moabite widow, became a pivotal figure in biblical history through her unwavering faith and loyalty. Her inclusion in the lineage of David, and ultimately Jesus Christ, highlights how God's plans transcend human boundaries, using ordinary people for extraordinary purposes. The concept of the *** kinsman redeemer ***, embodied by Boaz, finds its ultimate fulfillment in Jesus Christ, who, like Boaz, chose to redeem us out of love and grace. Ruth's story beautifully illustrates God's inclusive love and sovereign care, reminding us that faith and obedience are what truly matter in his eyes. As we reflect on Ruth's legacy, her life encourages us to trust God's providence, live with steadfast faith, and embrace the redemptive work he is doing in our lives. Like Ruth, our stories, no matter how ordinary they seem, can become part of God's grand design, leaving an impact far beyond what we can see. If you've been inspired by Ruth's incredible journey, we invite you to join us here at *** Bible Horizons ***, where we continue to uncover the timeless truths of the Bible. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with others who would love to explore these life-changing stories.